Hello, my name is Sam. I'm a perfume critic, and I'm here today at Lush's Perfume Lab, joined by some of the women that work at Lush in the perfumery department. So we have Emma Dick over here, Lush's perfumer, as well as Agnès from the buying team, and Gabby as well from the buying team. So should we start off by smelling the shade perfume?
Thank you.
What do you think?
I mean, I absolutely love woody perfumes anyway, so this is right up my street, and it's creamy and it's rich, but there's a real freshness to it as well, which I like. Mm-hmm. It's not too heavy. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, first off, I get a very aromatic feel from this fragrance. It's almost like you're stepping into a bathroom where the steam is like evaporating from the bath. Mm-hmm. It's very calming, very grounding, great for fall, I find.
Yeah, I think this is a really good sort of transition, isn't it, to the period. We're literally transitioning now, and I think it's a perfect placement for this perfume.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a real warmth to it.
Yeah,
it's really lovely.
Very warm and comforting. Beautiful. So what was your inspiration behind the perfume?
Well, actually, this started life about 7 years ago. It was probably one of the first 10 fragrances that I created, and initially it was intended for a Father's Day bath bomb. I almost forgot about it, and then somebody jogged my memory and said, you know, we should try this as a perfume. People really loved it. It kind of had a bit of a cult following.
And you've mentioned some of the ingredients that are used in Shade, which have been sourced by your buyers.
So we have oil. So in this fragrance, we have the oil of animal oil, also known as frankincense to some people. Yep. But we also have a resin. But for this particular sauce and in this particular perfume, it's the oil.
Perfect. So it would be nice to learn a little bit about the steps that go behind creating a perfume at Lush. It's not just, you know, having a concept and then creating the product. You do go into more depth with sourcing the ingredients. Would you like to speak a little bit about how you've sourced the sandalwood and the olibanum?
Well, okay, my part of it is the sandalwood. I've been working in Indonesia with a partner there over the last year, and we've sourced quite a lot of ingredients. And basically, the whole idea behind the work we're doing in Indonesia is to make sure that the ingredients that we source have a beneficial impact on the communities and the environment. That the materials are harvested sustainably, that we actually encourage people to not go into virgin forests to do planting, for instance. So what we've done is we are working with the communities. They are controlling the amount of wood that they cut every year. So they're self-imposing quotas just to make sure that it is sustainable. And because we want to we want to put in place regenerative techniques. So rather than just exploiting what is there on the ground, we want to make sure that we put stuff back in. We support growth, regrowth, regeneration, whether it's for sandalwood or other materials. So what we've decided to do this year is to actually invest in 2 nurseries in that area. The nurseries are on common land, so it's 5 villages who are responsible for looking after the nurseries. Mm-hmm. One nursery is 1,000 saplings, and that's going to be the nursery for what we call the mother trees. So the mother trees will never be cut once they've grown. What they do is that they bear fruit every year, the nuts of the sandalwood tree, and those are then harvested, replanted to grow seedlings to replant in the environment, and those will never be cut. And then another nursery which is for 20,000 seedlings, and those will be trees which eventually will be cut for oil, but they are looked after by the communities. And they will be, once the seedlings are big enough, they will be distributed to those 5 villages, and that involves 500 people. So I've taken to calling them the sandalwood guardians, because that's what they're going to do. It's not private land, it's common land. but those villages want to have a positive impact and want to make sure that there is protection for the trees and regrowth. The other part of the project, which is not sandalwood trees, but which is the Komodo dragon. As part of that project, we've also started supporting an Indonesian NGO called Wali, and they are. It happens that the Komodo dragons actually live in that area as well. So there is information packs going out to communities, training sessions to also encourage people to understand the environment of the Komodo dragons,
Right.
their habitat, and it links in with the trees, which means that you can protect a whole area very wholly, taking trees and living creatures into account, and also the population and their future, their income, their children's future.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about the olibanum that you've sourced?
Absolutely. So we have a long history of using olibanum in our products, or frankincense oil, and frankincense has also got a very long history in fragrance in general. And for many years, we've been working very closely with experts in the field, including Dr. Anjanette Carlo and Save Frankincense, to understand the challenges facing the olibanum industry, because there's often a lack of traceability or transparency. And in recent years, we've realised that the trees are at risk as well because they're being over-tapped. So ideally, a tree should be tapped once a year and left to rest. But as the demand for frankincense has increased and the prices have been really low, the local communities have been over-harvesting the resin, unfortunately, which means that longer term, there are doubts about the availability or the sustainability of olibanum. So a couple of years ago, we travelled to Somaliland to go visit different communities that are growing it and see how it's harvested. And all of these communities were linked to the sustainable harvesting practices. And it was amazing seeing and understanding how much these trees are valued. And we're really excited because now we're working with another new supplier that we've added into the mix from the Dayaha region in Somaliland. And for this olibanum oil, the resin is fully traceable, so all the trees are being GPS mapped across the farms in the community. So the resin is fully traceable, the harvesters as well, the payment, everything is being captured on blockchain to create full transparency and traceability from that
Wow.
tree to the finished oil. And it's hugely exciting for us. And then we're also working with the women in the community because frankincense is a very male-dominated industry. The landowners and the harvesters tend to be men. And women are more involved in sorting, if anything. And we're really excited because we just funded the kickstarting of a project that will actually train the local women to distill on a small scale the olibanum oil locally. So it's a first within the community, and the women will then be making their own olibanum oil that can be used locally, or if they scale it up, can be sold. And the idea is that this project could then be replicated elsewhere potentially as well, allowing other women in other harvesting communities to also learn.
That's
the amazing
incredible.
skills. Yeah.
Also, just to mention in terms of the name, obviously it's kind of reimagined, but we were sort of toying around with ideas. We were thinking like blockchain and, so that we could highlight the different stories. But then I think in the end we settled for shade because it was like the shade of the tree, but also the shade within the industry or within the production. So it was a way of like, this could represent what happens within the industry. And it's quite a, funky name, like it's quite current for us.
No, that's amazing to hear that you're also doing a lot of work on the ground, and which leads us to the next topic, which is women in perfumery. You described how frankincense is very male dominant, and so is the perfume industry, to be honest. I know myself as a reviewer and a fragrance critic that as a female, you really have to work hard to be taken seriously. So how has this been for you as women working in this field, and for you firstly sourcing the ingredients and helping out other women on the ground?
I've been involved in the essential oil side of things at Lush for 17 years, so it's been a long-term involvement, and it's very much, it's an industry that can be very, although they're beautiful ingredients, it can be quite a cold industry. So you have people working from desks, just contracting for quantities of materials, not really being that interested, or at least up until a few years ago, but not necessarily that interested in where are the raw materials grown, where do they come from, who is dealing with the raw materials, who is growing the herbs or the plants or whatever. and it was, you know, particularly when I first started, it was very much a kind of, you know, a guy's things, and you know, it's like buy, sell, you know, and that was it. Obviously, we've always been interested in understanding exactly what we use. So when I started going out in the field and just traveling around, and you know, going to the communities and sort of going to the processing plants, the factories, etc., and then the fields to see the raw materials. I think it was always quite a novelty to people to actually see a woman in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
you know.
I was going to say that, because obviously we've travelled a lot for essentials buying. So Agnes was the buyer, and I would travel with her as like quality control.
Yeah.
And you can see the look on their faces, like, there's two women. Like, who are these two
particularly
women?
as we're not particularly imposing, you
No,
know,
we're
it's just
not, you know,
come along,
and they always seem so surprised. Like, you want to come here and see this? We're like, yeah, of course we do. We want to know what we're buying. We want to see all
You
about
have your
it.
hiking
But,
boots on and
you know,
everything.
obviously, wherever you go, wherever you went there, you know, the women were maybe harvesting, or the women were in lab coats, you know. But in terms of like the nuts and bolts of pricing and everything else, it was very, very male dominated.
Yeah. But you've just mentioned the women, you know, that we encountered on the ground. As you said, the perfumery industry is very male dominated still, and you know, that probably will change through the years. In a way, okay, whether it's a male environment or a female environment, I think the crucial thing is to have that real passion and that real want to understand, to know, to gain expertise, to understand harvests, to understand how things grow, to understand how materials are affected by the weather, by, you know, particular summers being warm or cold or whatever. And I think, you know, we've had that forever, just that passion about knowing, understanding, and also, you know, understanding the people on the ground as well, the people who are actually, you know, have their hands in the soil and are actually, you know, if they weren't doing what they do, we wouldn't have this, we wouldn't have that. So it's been a real passion at Lush, and it still is.
Well, it's been a real pleasure being here at the Lush Perfume Lab with you ladies today. Thank you so much for your inputs, thank you more than anything for stepping out of the shade.
Look what you did there.